Hello everyone, and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Hope Logan stood in the nursery doorway, her palm resting on the bulge of her belly as she watched her daughter Beth play with a plush rabbit. The small girl's laughing filled the room, a sound that should have been joyful, but for Hope, it was a reminder of the fracture lines that ran through her life. Her husband, Liam Spencer, was he still alive, was downstairs, his voice low and strained while speaking on the phone. She didn't need to hear the words to determine who was on the other end.
Steffi.
Always Steffi. Hope's fingers tightened on the door frame. The previous 3 months had been a frenzy of disagreements, accusations, and hidden realities. Liam had promised her forever again after he had been torn between her and Steffi the first time. But forever appeared to be a flimsy concept in the world of the Forrestos and Spencers. Beth, their miraculous child, the one they'd worked so hard to bring into the world after the island's devastation, was now at the center of a storm Hope hadn't anticipated. "Mommy, look," Beth called, holding up the rabbit with a smile that warmed Hope's heart. She mustered a smile and entered inside the room, kneeling next to her daughter. "That is beautiful, honey. Mr. Bunny looks very happy today," Hope said softly, her eyes remote. Beth, at 4 years old, was too young to comprehend the tension that hung over the house like a fog, but she sensed it. Children always did. Liam hung up the phone and ran a hand over his hair. Steffi's voice had been sharp and demanding, as it always was with their daughter, Kelly. "Liam, you can't continue splitting your time like this. Kelly needs her father. She's asking for you." He wanted to protest, to convince Steffi that Beth needed him just as much, but the truth was that he was overworked. His heart was a battlefield, and each decision felt like a betrayal. The front door opened, and Eric Forrester's voice echoed throughout the foyer. "Liam. Hope. We have to talk." Hope's gut tightened. Eric rarely raised his voice unless something was very wrong. She grabbed Beth up in her arms and descended the stairs, her pulse hammering. Eric stood in the living room with Ridge, Brooke, and Steffi, much to Hope's dismay. The atmosphere was laden with unsaid accusations. Liam's eyes met Hope's, and for a brief moment, she saw the man she'd fallen in love with all those years ago, the one who had sworn to be by her side no matter what. However, that man was buried by layers of remorse and indecision. "What is this about?" Hope inquired, her voice firm despite the trembling in her hands. Beth squirmed, sensing her mother's concern, and Hope set her down, watching the tiny girl toddle up to Brooke, who picked her up with a warm grin. Eric's expression was bleak. "This is about Beth. And Kelly. And the future of this family." He pointed to a folder on the coffee table filled with legal documents. Hope's blood went cold. "What is that?" Liam inquired, stepping forward. Steffi's voice sliced through the room like a dagger. "This is a custody agreement, Liam. For Kelly. And for Beth, if you force my hand." Her gaze was fixed on Hope, icy and unrelenting. "You have had him long enough, Hope. It's time to stop playing house and face reality." Hope's breath seized in her throat. "Are you threatening to remove my daughter?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, yet it had the force of a scream. "I'm protecting my daughter," Steffi yelled. "Liam has been going back and forth for years, and Kelly is caught in the middle. She merits stability. If you can't give Liam that, Beth may not need him either." The room swirled. Hope grasped the back of a chair to keep herself steady. Liam's face was pale, and his lips moved open and closed, as if he couldn't find the words. "Steffi, this is insane," he finally said. "You can't just—" "I can and I will," Steffi replied, her voice shaking with confidence. "You've made your choice, Liam. Over and over again. I'm done waiting for you to choose a lane." Brooke stepped forward, her face a mask of rage. "Steffi, you are not allowed to enter this residence and endanger my daughter's family. Beth is Hope and Liam's child. You have no claim here." "Don't I?" Steffi laughed bitterly. "Liam is my husband in every manner that matters. We have a child, a past, and a life. Aside from a long list of broken promises, what do you and Hope have?" Hope's knees buckled, and she slumped on the couch. Beth, oblivious to the storm, laughed as Brooke tickled her chin. But Hope saw the future unraveling in front of her eyes, a future in which Beth questioned why Daddy wasn't home, Liam's uncertainty tore their family apart, and Steffi's wealth and influence won out in court. "Stop it," Liam exclaimed, his voice breaking. "Just stop. This is not about the girls. This is about us. Me. I've messed this up, okay? I am aware of this." But pulling Beth and Kelly into this, he shook his head, tears welling in his eyes. "That's not fair." "Life isn't fair, Liam," Steffi replied quietly, and Hope saw the suffering beneath her rival's arrogance. Steffi was battling not only for Kelly, but also for the life she believed she deserved with Liam. Hope, despite her love and dedication, could not compete with that history. Eric cleared his throat. "This family has gone through enough. We've lost too much to let this break us apart again. Liam, you have to make a choice. Not tomorrow, not next week, for good." The room went silent. All eyes were on Liam, and Hope felt the weight of his stare as a physical blow. She wanted to shout, begging him to choose her, Beth, and the life they'd created. But deep inside, she realized that love wasn't enough to keep him. Not anymore. "I need time," Liam finally stated, his voice barely audible. Steffi's expression stiffened. "You have had years, Liam. I'm done giving you time." She turned to face Hope, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "You won this round, Hope. But this isn't over." As Steffi rushed out, the room appeared to exhale. But Hope did not feel relieved. She sensed the slow, terrible crumbling of everything she had battled for. Beth raced to her, wrapped her small arms around Hope's neck, and Hope clutched her tightly, tears flowing down her cheeks. Sheila Carter peered into a cracked mirror across town, in a darkly lit apartment smelling of stale coffee and sadness. Her wedding ring glinted on her finger, a reminder of the life she had clawed her way back into. Her husband, Deacon Sharp, was at Il Giardino, working late yet again. She did not mind. The solitude allowed her to think, plan, and nurse the scars that never fully healed. Sheila's marriage to Deacon was a miracle, or so she convinced herself. After years of being the woman everyone dreaded and disliked in Los Angeles, Deacon saw something in her that was worth preserving. He'd stood by her through the allegations, prison sentences, and whispers that she was a monster. However, his eyes had recently become distant, and his touches were ephemeral. And Sheila understood why. It was Finn, her son. She had lost it, found it, and then lost it again. Steffi had made certain of this, poisoning Finn's mind against her and portraying her as the villain in every story. And now, with Steffi and Liam at odds, Sheila saw an opportunity and a threat. Her phone vibrated on the counter, and she looked at the screen. A message from an unknown number. "We need to chat. It is about Finn." Her heart jumped. Was this a trap? A trick? Or was it an opportunity to reclaim her son? She typed a rapid response, her fingers trembling. "Where?" The response was immediate. "The cliffs. Midnight." Sheila's breath tightened. The cliffs were where everything had gone wrong years before, and she'd almost lost everything. But she was no longer the same lady. She was stronger, smarter, and more desperate. If this was her chance to prove herself to Finn, to show him she was more than the monster Steffi described, she'd take it. She slid into a black jacket and grabbed her keys, her mind racing. Deacon would be upset if he knew, but he had no idea. Nobody did. This wasn't just about Finn. It was about redemption, about proving she could be a mother, a wife, and a person worth loving. The route to the cliffs was a swirl of headlights and shadows. The water raged below, reminding her of the night she pretended to die and lost everything. She parked and stepped outside, the wind blowing her hair in her face. A figure stood on the edge, silhouetted against the silvery sky. "Finn," she called, her voice shaking with hope. The figure turned, and Sheila's heart stopped. It was not Finn. It was Steffi. "You," Sheila spat, her fists clenched. "What type of game is this?" "No game," Steffi said, her voice chilly but wavering. Sheila, I know what you're planning. You believe you can utilize the situation with Liam and hope to get to Finn. You're mistaken. Sheila laughed, a hollow, sad sound. You know nothing about me, Steffi. You never have. I know you are a liar, Steffi added, taking a step closer. I know you will say and do everything to achieve what you want. But Finn's my spouse. He is the father of my children. You don't get to take that from me, Sheila said, her eyes narrowing. Do you think you're perfect? Forrester princess, you have the perfect life and family. But you're falling apart, Steffi. I see it. Liam is leaving you in the dust, and you are terrified. Steffi's expression contorted with wrath. You can't talk about my life. You're not allowed to talk about my family. You're nothing to us. The words hit Sheila like a slap, but she didn't move. I'm Finn's mother, she explained, her voice low and menacing. That is something you can never take away. Steffi lunged, seizing Sheila's jacket. Stay away from him, she yelled, her voice breaking. Keep away from all of us. Sheila shoved her back harder than she intended. Steffi slipped when her heel caught on a loose pebble. Time slowed as Sheila stared in dread as Steffi teetered on the cliff's brink, her arms windmilling for balance. Steffi. Sheila cried and reached out, but it was too late. Steffi's scream resonated across the night as she fell and vanished into the darkness below. Sheila stood still, her heart hammering against her chest. The wind howled, the waves crashed, and the planet appeared to hold its breath. She stumbled backwards, her mind reeling. Has she pushed her? Has Steffi slipped? It did not matter. Steffi had left, leaving Sheila to deal with the consequences on her own. She dashed to her car, her hands shaking so violently that she could hardly start the engine. Her phone buzzed again, and she looked at it with dread. Another text from an unknown number. You should not have arrived. Her blood became chilly. Someone had set her up. Someone intended this to happen. Back at the Forrester estate, Hope sat on the floor of Beth's room, surrounded by toys and pencils, but her mind was far away. Liam had departed hours ago, claiming he wanted to clear his mind. She had not stopped him. What was there to say? Every talk felt like a rehash of the same worn script. Love, doubt, promises, and betrayal. Beth lay asleep in her cradle, her small chest rising and falling with each breath. Hope studied her, noting every detail, the curl of her eyelids, the contour of her cheek. If Liam left, and Steffi took Beth away, this could be all she had left. Her phone rang, breaking the silence. It was Brooke. Hopefully, turn on the news. Hope's hands trembled as she picked up the remote and turned on the television. The screen displayed a breaking news alert. Forrester heir Steffi Forrester missing following cliffside altercation. The reporter's tone was dismal. Authorities are searching the waters beneath the cliffs where Steffi Forrester was last seen. Witnesses claim a confrontation with an unknown person. Police are asking anyone with information to come forward. Hope's world shifted. Is Steffi gone? It didn't appear real. But the footage of the cliffs, the police lights, and the frenzied search felt all too familiar. She'd been through it before, with Beth, the island, and every catastrophe that seemed to befall their family. She dialed Liam, her fingers fuming, but he did not respond. She tried Finn, Ridge, and then Eric. Nobody picked up. The house felt like a tomb, with silence closing in on her. Hours later, Liam pushed through the door, his face pale. Hope, he gasped out. They discovered her scarf. On the rocks. Hope's knees gave out, and she collapsed to the floor. Liam knelt alongside her and pulled her into his arms, but she didn't feel anything. Not his warmth, his guilt, or her own sadness. Only a bleak, aching nothingness. Sheila, Liam muttered. They think it was Sheila. Hope closed her eyes, the puzzle pieces coming into place. Sheila is always lurking in the shadows, manipulating threads and wrecking lives. But this time, it wasn't all about her. It was about Beth, Kelly, and the frail threads that held their families together. In the days that followed, the hunt for Steffi consumed Los Angeles. Finn was a ghost, with hollow eyes as he stood by the cliffs, crying her name into the void. Kelly clutched to him, her small face covered with tears, asking when Mommy will be home. Hope watched from a distance, her anguish mixed with guilt. Steffi had been her rival and adversary, but she was also a mother, a sister, and a woman battling for her family. Sheila, however, was nowhere to be found. Deacon sought for her, but his calls were unanswered, and his pleas were ignored. He sat in their apartment, staring at her wedding ring, which was left on the kitchen counter with a message saying, "I'm sorry. I had to." The cops arrived, but she had already fled into the night, like a specter. Rumors circulated that she'd gone to Mexico, while some claimed she'd committed suicide, unable to bear the consequences of her actions. But Hope knew better. Sheila did not flee from her sins. She embraced them. Liam and Hope clung to each other in the aftermath, but it wasn't love that kept them together. It was fear. Fear of losing Beth, of losing themselves, of confronting a world without Steffi's fire to challenge them. They attended the memorial, which was a gloomy occasion full with tears and whispers. Finn spoke, his voice breaking as he swore to seek justice for his wife. Kelly stood alongside him, clutching a photograph of her mother, her eyes too aged for her youthful features. Hope hugged Beth tightly, her daughter's warmth the only thing keeping her anchored. "Mommy, where is Aunt Steffi?" Beth inquired, her voice quiet. Hope's throat clenched. "She's with the angels, sweetheart." Beth nodded, accepting the answer with childlike belief. But Hope felt the weight of the falsehood and the vulnerability of the truth. Steffi was not with the angels. She was gone, her life snuffed out in a fit of wrath and desperation, and the repercussions would haunt everyone. Sheila's disappearance left a vacuum, but also raised doubts. Who lured her to the cliffs? Who had wanted Steffi dead? The police investigated, but the case went cold. Hope wondered maybe it was someone closer to home, someone who had profited from Steffi's abduction, someone who saw an opportunity in the confusion. Liam's indecision disappeared, replaced by a ruthless desire to defend Beth at whatever cost. He returned to the mansion, his belongings filling the spaces left vacant by Steffi's absence. But Hope noticed the darkness in his eyes, the remorse that would never leave. He had loved Steffi in his own way, and her death was an unhealed wound. Deacon, devastated by Sheila's treachery, immersed himself into his job, but Il Giardino was a shell of itself without her tumultuous vitality. He carried her ring in his pocket as a remembrance of the woman he once loved and lost. He didn't think she had died. Sheila was a survivor, and survivors refused to give up. Months later, the search for Steffi was called off. Her body was never discovered, her destiny a mystery that hung over the city like a dark cloud. Finn reared Kelly alone, with his heart walled off to the outside world. Hope and Liam rebuilt their lives, but it was fragile, built on the ashes of the past. One night, Hope awoke to see Liam standing at the window, peering into the darkness. "What is it?" she inquired, her voice heavy with sleep. "I saw her," he muttered. "Steffi. On the cliffs. She was calling to me." Hope's heart sank. "It was a dream, Liam." He shook his head. "No. It was real. She is out there, Hope. I know it." Hope did not protest. She lacked the strength. Instead, she drew him back into bed, embracing him as he trembled. The ghosts of their past were never far away, and Steffi's was the loudest. Sheila sat at a wobbly table in a small motel on the outskirts of town, with a map spread before her. Her hair was dyed, her face changed, but her eyes remained the same, piercing, calculating, and unyielding. She had lost everything, her son, her husband, and her freedom, but she was not finished. Not yet. She trailed her finger across the chart, her lips twisting into a smile. Steffi was gone, but the game hadn't ended. There were bills to pay and scores to settle. And Sheila Carter was always collecting. Back at the mansion, Beth drew a picture of her family, Mommy, Daddy, and a woman with long dark hair standing on the edge of a cliff. "Who is that?" Hope inquired, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's Aunt Steffi. Beth exclaimed, her crayon scribbling rapidly. She's watching us. Hope's heart stopped. Her hands trembled as she put the drawing into a drawer. Some truths were too hefty for a child, or anyone. The Logan Forrester Spencer saga was far from finished. Love, loss, betrayal, these were the strands that held their lives together, and no one, not even death, could pull them apart entirely. Hope hugged her baby close, murmuring promises into her hair, but in the stillness of the night, she heard the echoes of Steffi's scream, the crash of the waves, and the laughter of a woman who would never completely go. And somewhere in the shadows, Sheila plotted her return, her heart aflame of wrath and redemption. The Cliffs claimed one life, but they gave her another chance. And Sheila Carter never squandered a chance.